close the public hearing and come back to the council for action.
Can I just make a general comment first, just a correction. The Northfield rezone happened in 2014. It went to the ballot in November of 2014. I remember that because I was on that ballot.
16.
16, it came out that year. No, it came out 15.
Trump, when Trump got elected, that's when we voted on it, a year ago.
What I'd like to point out, it was not this council that made that change. There are 3 members left on this council who were members. 2 of them voted against that.
Well, what happened to them?
2 of them still here who voted against it. Okay. And so anyways, I wanted to point out, it was not this exact body that made that change.
That was this body, different folks in those seats.
Exactly.
I would also mention that as we looked at this we looked at the north, we looked at the central, we looked at the south planning area. Probably been, what's it been when we did those committees, Steve, when we redid the general plan 8 years ago at least.
8 or 10 years ago.
The recommendation of that committee at that time was to rezone this to RA5, the whole southern planning area. To rezone it to RA5 8 years ago. That never did. That recommendation was passed on from that committee. It didn't go anywhere. And then in 2014, we considered the rezone in the North Fields after a lot of discussion and study and so forth. And as was said, there were some that voted against that. But this was recommended to be RA5 for many of the obvious reasons we're talking about tonight.
So it went away, so why would you entertain that again?
Yeah, it went away because we didn't pursue it for whatever reason. I don't know why. The recommendation was passed for planning. I'm not going to blame anybody.
Yeah.
It just never did come forward. It probably would have been changed 8 years ago to RA5.
You were wise 8 years ago.
Well,
Any other comments or questions from the council? We're back to the council.
Yeah, can we go back to map 26? Oh. Right now, our general plan is just what it is in general. And it's a guideline, and it doesn't address every property in the county. We've got an arbitrary line right now. It's subjective line. Subject to change, there's nothing to base it on where the line is between the southern and the central plan. If we was to adopt this map 26 with a high water table, there would be not a lot of property change, but yet this would give us an objective measure that say we can't go into this high water table with the change. I mean, like I said, originally the central planning area went all the way down to Castroville Road. Them properties on Castroville Road that's not on 20 acres, if something happened to your house or something like that, there'd be some question whether you could rebuild because you don't match the zone. That's the reason we changed it down there, because as we looked at all the properties along Castroville Road, none of them were 20 acres. I think that parcel you bought from the Webbs is 2.5 acres. And so we tried to make it conform. It's a guideline, the general plan is a guideline, but I think you got to use some judgment in it and have something objective to measure against. We got an area there in that summer zone that is all subjective. Somebody drew a line on a map. I was on that committee, that the 100 committee of 100 that helped set up the general plan. And when it came right down to it, the map was drawn with, not all of them had an objective base to it.
we probably didn't have all this information at that time either.
I think we have this.
Oh, did we?
So I'd rather see us make some adjustment now and get some clarification and something we can put our teeth into and say, this is where the boundaries is and this is why the boundaries there.
And what happens when people want to change that?
We say, this is the reason you did it, and you change this map, or get somebody to change the map, or prove it's not there anymore.
Well, unfortunately, there always has to be boundaries, and somebody's not gonna like
But
that.
the boundary should be based on something, Annie,
It needs to have
other than
something
just a line on
tangible.
a map.
Mr. Park, have you got any, we'll just kind of go down the road here and
You got another
get some
question over
comments.
here.
Well,
Ma'am.
just one other quick comment. I mean, this is not about lines on a map.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Oh, sorry, Trudy Simmons. This is not about lines on a map. It's about the quality of life and preserving a beautiful area. It's the spirit and the overall atmosphere that we're talking about. Whether it's on, whether it's on this side of the line or that side of the line is really irrelevant. It's about helping this area to stay beautiful.
Well, then why don't we just put a moratorium on all building?
Good idea.
Good.
So no property rights. No property rights at all. Mr. Park, would you like to make any comments before we take action? We'll just kind of go down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was the councilman that asked for a boundary, a defined boundary, because I worry about the slippery slope. But when I look at this map particularly, it looks like, I don't know why the boundary is there. I mean, this is just kind of a weird finger peninsula that sticks out there that's surrounded by RA5. I would love the boundary to be 650 south and right on that line that says high water mark. There's that yellow line there between there, but obviously there's not a physical boundary we can sink our teeth into that says don't go past this line, and that's what we're looking to, and I think that's why the planning department picked up Spring Creek. Although that's where I said.
Any further comment, Mr. Farrell? Mr. Crittenden, anything additional?
I would say, when this proposal first came, I was initially opposed to it, as I thought, again, some of the comments that have been made today, we keep moving, but as we've looked at it, we've looked at what Mr. Park has said, we've looked at the line, where it was established. As Mr. Smith said earlier, as this ordinance is drafted, if we pass this tonight, if this ordinance that will be very specifically defined to help hold that line and the reason why that line is where it is. And as I've looked at that, I think it establishes a firm line and more justifiable line on where that is. We talked a lot about growth, and we just had cheering. I hesitate to ask it, but cheering of let's stop all development. I guess I could ask some of those that have spoken tonight what property they held on and what it was before they wanted it built. We stopped growth, how many would maybe not have a home in the valley today? Anyway,
Mr. Goode.
Thanks for correcting me, I was wrong. In 2014, the major issue on the ballot, other than me getting elected, was the aquatic center. And the Northfield's going to refer to...
Knew there was two major issues.
Yeah, I knew. That one was referred to 2016 for the next major election. Before I jump into this, so many of you are here. Run for office. There's 3 county council seats up this year. Mine's up. Okay, I'm unelectable because I'm a Democrat now. But please run. We're not a one-issue county. I haven't seen most of you ever in the going on 40 years that I've been on council. We're not a one-issue county. Please get involved and run for office. This one is a bit hard for me because I really do understand the slippery slope argument, and I appreciate the comments from Sybil, is that right? Who's on Park City Commission? Summit County Commission. Sorry, I didn't mean to insult you. This could become a slippery slope problem. The second treatise of government was written by John Locke. He talked about life, liberty, and property. All right. Our American government was founded on the rights of the individual and the property owner. That's very important to our republic. At the same time, we have a general plan. We have zoning. When you come into an area, a city or a county, you abide by that zoning. You can appeal to make changes. if this wasn't so close to a city boundary, I would say it's his property, he's way out there, we can make a change to a general plan. Maybe not this exact change, but some change. It's on a city boundary, so it does have some, it has a lot of neighbors, a lot of consequences with it. This is a real tough one for me, because I think there is something to the snowball effect or the slippery slope or the can of worms argument. I remember that being arguments by some of the members who voted against the rezone of North Fields, that they didn't really see a problem with it going to RA5, 10, sorry, thank you, the new zone of 10 at the time, but that there could be a slippery slope, and then it would be RA5, and then it would be this and that. So my comments are, I'm really struggling with that, because I respect the rights of the individual, and you have every right in the world to request a change. And then we have to balance it with everything that we do within government. And so it's a tough one for me.
Mr. Nelson.
As Danny said, this is extremely complicated and difficult, and but I think the ultimate outcome of this is increasing density, which I'm against.
Okay. All right. I think I'm where I've been for a long time. This is a 5-acre, surrounded by 5-acre zone. 3 homes on 20 acres, 4 homes on 20 acres is about 90-something% open. Lots of folks around Heber City that's close to the city boundary would love to have that much open space. It's a natural transition. It's surrounded by RA5, so to me it fits. Gives us a hard stop at 650. We're actually taking area back from the other side. Knowing what I know about these seats and the folks who are now here, we'll see less and less zone change in density. That's just been the natural progression. So my grandparents were born here, and if they had made the decisions to not do things, then myself included, I wouldn't be able to have a nice home here and live here. So very much property rights activists think that this, or property rights advocate, excuse me, think this makes sense, this particular one. So we'll go to the council for action.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion. We go ahead and grant the boundary change and as requested, and amend the general plan to put a finite boundary description in it, separating the central from the southern planning area with all the, and approve this request with all the findings, conclusions and findings of the Planning Commission.
We have a motion by Mr. Farrell. Do we have a second?
I'll second, but as I do that, just a clarification, I understand if we pass this, then the next step with this is to do the ordinance that will make the actual change. Is that correct? An ordinance that changes the language in the general plan.
That depends how you want to go. If you want to continue the rezone until that time you have an ordinance in place, then that'd be that process.
But the ordinance has got to come in there. Or you say we could do the second step tonight.
You could if you wanted to go that route.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Farrell and a second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. Mr. Crittenden?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries 4-2. Oh, I should have made mention, I know a lot of you weren't here earlier, Councilmember Peterson is excused. He had a tragedy in his immediate family, so we've excused him this evening. Okay, we're on to item number 2. Committee approach requesting rezone of 20.5 acres from A20 to RA5, located approximately 650 west.
Could we continue this? I'd like what Doug suggested, that we could possibly continue this.
I want to talk to that lady too.
Lock up what those individuals are. Do we need to hear that tonight, or can we continue it before we even hear it, or do we want to hear it and then?
I think we ought to hear it and have a public hearing while we've got folks here to speak on the issue personally.
I'm fine with that.
But that's just my opinion. So,
I'd like to hear it and then maybe not make a decision until we see the final ordinance.
Let's do that.
okay. Anybody got anything different than that? If not, we'll proceed. Doug?
Okay. So, just as a follow-up to the previous item, this would be the next, kind of the next process would be the rezone of the property. As mentioned previously, the general plan amendment does not include the rezone. So currently that property that we've talked about is zoned A20, and the proposal would be to zone it to RA5. If the rezone is approved, then that doesn't mean it's ready for building permits. The applicant would then have to apply for a small-scale subdivision. At that time, we'd have to determine water and septic and all that type of thing for the property. So, as mentioned, it's A20 now, proposed to be RA5, and it's 20.50 acres. If it were subdivided, it would all be on well and septic. I think we all know the location and zoning that I mentioned. And as part of the previous application, that boundary then would then be adjusted so that this comes down here, all this becomes the central planning area. I'm sorry, this becomes the central planning area of the city. So these two parcels become the central planning area, and the southern planning area would then include this property here.
So this would, there's less, we're putting less area in the southern than we're taking from the central. Or
We're taking more out than we're putting.
yeah, I guess that was what I was talking. So it gives us a hard stop.
So that would be the proposed boundary of the southern planning area. As mentioned before, map 26 we've talked about with the groundwater and the septic suitability and the flood inundation, the bypass that we discussed. Now, what we've done with the findings are the letter that was read previously that you got in your email today. These are basically the reiteration of those same things. So the general plan states, as a matter of public policy, the central planning area is to be maintained in its historical land use pattern of open meadows and river and small stream riparian habitat. So this would be an argument really to not change it from the central planning area, but to keep the zoning the same. The general plan states the use of this area for housing and other types of development is discouraged due to the physical constraints and the higher cost of providing governmental services. The general plan states that the area's scenic values contribute significantly to the real value of all land within the Heber Valley area. The general plan states that the preservation of open space in the central planning area will also provide for a desired greenbelt separation between Heber City and Midway. The general plan states that the development code should ensure that any development along SR 113 is set well back from the road and the rural character along the road is maintained. The purpose section for the A20 zone states avoid excessive costs for public services in areas with high physical constraints. The purpose section for the A20 zone states that preserve the beauty of the entry quarters of Wasatch County. The purpose of the A20 zone states protect the underground water supply from pollution. Again, the purpose section of the A20 zone states maintain an open rural buffer between Heber and Midway City. The parcel is bordered on the east by both the RA5 zone and the southern planning area. The concern for approving the rezone could be the expansion of the RA5 zoning throughout the Southfields area. County Council as land use authority on zoning map amendments has broad discretion on rezone approvals or denials. Any development of the property would require it to go through a small-scale subdivision process. So that's the central planning area findings. The southern planning area findings are the following. The general plan states that the single greatest constraint to development in this area without a sewer collection system is the use of septic tank drain fields as a means of wastewater disposal due to the high potential of contamination of the groundwater aquifer. The general plan states, and this is from the Hansen Allen Luce study in 1994, that determined that a concentration of septic tank drain fields greater than 1 per 5 acres could result in a abolition of Heber Valley's underground water designation as pristine. The general plan states that physical constraints that may limit development in this planning area, a review of these identified constraints along with a detailed on-site analysis which should be required before any development is approved within this planning area. The general plan states that with the lack of sewer collection system or the potential for a sewer collection system in the next 15 to 20 years, the disposal of residential wastewater will be by the use of septic tank drain fields. General plan states that the development code shall establish the minimum lot size in this planning area as 5 acres. The purpose section of the 820 zone states that to avoid excessive costs for public services in areas with high physical constraints. And findings in the southern planning area continue. The purpose section for the 820 zone states, preserve the beauty of the entry corridors of Wasatch County, protect the underground water supply from pollution, maintain an open rural buffer between Heber and Midway City. Parcel is bordered on the east by the RA5 zone, and both parcels are within the southern planning area boundary. A concern for approving the rezone could be the expansion of the RA5 zoning throughout the Southfields area. The council, as a land use authority on zoning map amendments, has broad discretion on rezone approvals or denials. Finally, any development of the property will require to go through a small-scale subdivision. And last slide on this is that the rezone was forwarded to the council by the Planning Commission with a 4-2 vote, with 2 nay votes, but it passed by a quorum of 4.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any more questions for Doug on this? Okay, thanks, Doug. Anything from the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, we'll open this up for public hearing. So anyone wishing to make public comment on this item,
I have
please
a
come
question.
forward and state your name.
My name is Megan Hooley. I believe in property rights. I believe in Riley's. I believe in mine, yours. But just a question, and this is a real question, not a confrontational question. Like, for me, in my mind, I'm like, okay, so with the septic system, I mean, and possibly opening it up to a lot of development, I mean, does that affect, you know, does that possibly put, you know, my property rights in jeopardy? I mean, I don't know. This is a question. It's just something that comes to my mind, you know? It's
I think that's the reason that the RA5 zoning requires.
So it's just 5. So they're saying 5 is fine, but weren't they saying it was 20? Am I confused? Weren't they saying 20 was because of the high?
If you put a home on 20 acres, you need a septic. If you want to build a home in anything other than 1, you have to have sewer. 1, you have to have sewer.
1
5 is
sewer.
a minimum for a septic system.
Okay. But
Other areas in Utah, it's 2, 2.5.
okay, maybe I'm confused because I'm just thinking, okay, so if you're opening all this 20 up to 5, so the plan is saying it's 5 will not contaminate the groundwater.
Bullet points.
Hansen Allen Goode's study said that 5 acres would maintain the pristine.
5 acres would keep the pristine.
What's
Okay.
the minimum acreage?
What's the minimum? Okay, because that's just,
You have to have 5 acres to put a septic tank in Wasatch County.
okay, gotcha, all right.
Correct, Doug? I don't want to make sure.
Yeah.
Any further public comment on this item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and come back to the council for action on this.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this rezone until such time as we complete the ordinance that has been affected by passing the last item, the
Do we want to
change
set
in the southern area.
we want to put a time certain on that, or
Well, that's what I said.
I think we try to, don't we,
Once the
Doug?
ordinance, but if you have an idea when that would be, we can do that.
If you want to put it on for the meeting in February, that's fine with me.
Does that give you enough time to beat out that ordinance? You'd indicated you needed to work with the
I think
county.
so.
Okay. Does anyone need this to go to?
I just have a question on it. So if that, so you're not going to approve the rezone until the ordinance is passed and approved. Now that doesn't have to go back out and be noticed, right?
That's
In
correct.
fact, depending on what they want to do, if they close the public hearing, it could be on another agenda for the 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I did close it and come back to the council.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just asking the
So,
process.
so the process is, now that we've had the public hearing, which has to be at a 6 o'clock meeting, our normal agenda starts at 4. If you have the ordinance ready for just pick it, our next meeting is the first meeting, first Wednesday in February. If you had the ordinance ready, we could put this on so they could be voted on the same time.
Okay.
We could pass the ordinance.
So there's not another noticing, we went through the required public hearings and all that. So there's still a chance that it may not pass.
Right, and that's why I'm wondering.
The other one,
That's why I'm wondering, why do you have to wait for the ordinance to be done? Because we've approved to move the property in the southern planning zone, right?
for that reason.
For that reason, and now I understand why you're waiting for the ordinance, and I think the ordinance protects future, right? But I don't understand why it would protect this piece if it's already kind of been
Well,
done.
depending on how the ordinance is written, I don't perceive that, but depending on how the ordinance is written, it might affect what we actually do with this rezone, whether we approve it or not, or.
Could you do it contingent on it?
So we could vote on it tonight, we could do what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think we've already made the decision basically before, so in my opinion, I'm ready to vote.
To
But
see the ordinance, approve the ordinance.
either way, I think it puts it off a few weeks, so.
What the boundaries, or how it's stated.
No, I understand.
And
Okay.
some of that might be based on what that says. Well, conditions that are put on the rezone might be dependent upon what's in that ordinance.
Okay.
And that's why.
I just want to understand how that works.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion
So
by,
did we want to continue that then? You can be ready for the February meeting? That first February meeting, or do you want to?
I think so.
So it'll be February 7th.
okay, we have a motion by Mr. Crittenden to continue until the ordinance landed to the February 7th meeting and the ordinance is written and we can look at them at the same time.
Second.
Did I state that correctly?
I think so.
Motion by Mr. Crittenden, second by Mr. Park. Any further discussion on the motion?
Greg, I just have a question. Maybe this is a question for you, Steve, because it's certainly not something that I have any expertise at, but that water study, which is an important part of this, I think, that is 24 years old, is that still, are those studies good? Does everyone believe, those who know about water think that that's not too old, that's not out of date, and it still applies?
I think if you look at this property, the characteristics are completely different than the North Fields. That's one of the reasons why, to me, it's a different type of issue.
To speak to that, the health department right now is in the process of putting together a new water study for the valley as it relates to the health department. I guess they maybe did that one too, so there will be a new water study within next year or so, but they're very expensive.